From quads hitting the muck to full houses tossed aside, these are the most embarrassing poker moments you won't believe actually happened. And trust me, each one gets crazier as we go. This hand went down in 2017 during Poker Night in America's King of the Hill event, a winner-take-all heads-up showdown with $200,000 on the line. It was the final match, and two giants of the game sat across from each other, Phil Hellmuth and Daniel Jungleman Cates. By this point, Jungleman had built up a big lead, but then came a hand that flipped the script in the strangest way. Pre-flop, Cates raised with 5-10 of clubs, a loose raise, but fine heads up. Hellmuth defended with Queen-Jack. The flop came 10-3 deuce, giving Jungleman top pair. He bet, and Hellmuth just called. So far, so good. Pretty normal stuff. The turn was another 10. That card gave Jungleman trips, a really strong hand heads up. He fired again, but this time Hellmuth fought back. He check-raised, leaving himself a small stack behind. Cates paused, thought it through, and called. The pot ballooned to around 50,000, while Hellmuth sat behind with just under 10,000 left. Then there came a flush with the 9 of diamonds. Hellmuth shoved his last 9,900 into the middle. The bet was tiny compared to the pot, and he was bluffing most of the time. Jungleman's hand was far too strong to fold on paper. Trips heads up with those odds was almost always a snap call, but then came the shocker. Jungleman tanked and folded. Just mucked his trips.
I'm all in.
Wow. 10K. This is it. Wait, what? I'm sorry, what just happened?
Hellmuth, who had nothing but Queen-Jack, dragged the pot. The commentators went silent before breaking into disbelief. If this wasn't cringe, then I don't know what is. Fans still point to this moment as one of the most awkward folds ever seen on TV. Before we get to why this was embarrassing on so many levels, why do you think Cates took that route? Let us know in the comments. The math was crystal clear. Cates only needed to be right about 15% of the time to make the call profitable. Folding trips there is like walking away from a free meal because you don't trust the waiter. Some say it was fear. Others say Jungleman was trying to think on a higher level. Either way, it was the fold that let Hellmuth storm back and claim the title. But if you thought folding trips were bad, just wait until you see the next one, because believe it or not, someone once folded quads. Yes, 4 of a kind.
Ace, ace, 6.
This bumbling embarrassment happened at Triton Poker in Montenegro 2019 on a short deck ante-only event with a high buy-in. Big names were at the final table that day: John Jawanda, Jungleman, and Daniel Dvoris. Before the hand, Jawanda had about 2.2 million, while Lebedev had 2.4 million in chips. Blinds were 25K, 50K. During the action pre-flop, someone limped, Lebedev called, and Jawanda called too with 6-6. So did Jungleman and other players. The flop came ace, ace, 6. That gave Jawanda a full house right away. He bet small, 75,000 into the pot. Lebedev check-raised with a big flush draw. Jawanda called. On the turn came another ace, making it possible that someone had quads with aces in short deck. Jawanda bet again, this time small. Lebedev called. The pot kept growing. The river dropped the 6 of clubs that made Jawanda's hand quads. That notwithstanding, a single ace in this game could still beat him. Lebedev led small for 200,000. Jawanda paused for about 50 seconds. Then he folded. Lebedev won the pot of about 1,075,000 chips. Hit like if you think that win should have gone to someone else. Holding quads is one of the rarest, most powerful hands in poker. Jawanda held them and then gave them up.
Whether or not it's the best hand is a sick hand. He does fold.
Wow! He just folded quads.
It's embarrassing because he had a huge hand and still decided someone else might beat him, just because of what the board looked like and what Lebedev represented. Considering the pot odds and the chips he had behind, the fold was almost unthinkable. People online still talk about this hand. They say you simply do not fold quads in poker. Even seasoned players called it a mistake. And if you thought folding quads was unbelievable, then you have no idea what Maria Ho did with a set of tens. Maria Ho is one of the most famous women in poker. She has built a reputation as a TV host and also as a tough competitor at the table. But even great players make decisions that puzzle fans sometimes. One of her most talked about folds came during the 2017 World Series of Poker Europe main event in Rozvadov, Czech Republic. The tournament had a prize pool of over 5 million euros. By the time this hand was played, the field had already shrunk down to just 21 players. Everyone left was guaranteed a payout, but the big money and the gold bracelet were still ahead. Maria had a strong stack of close to 1 million chips, plenty to fight with. Around her table sat well-known players like Rainier Kemp, Kristen Bicknell, and Niall Farrell, all of them very good. The action began when Kemp raised before the flop. Bicknell called, and Farrell then put in a large re-raise from the small blind. Sitting in the big blind, Maria peeked down at pocket tens. It was a solid hand, strong enough to continue, so she decided to call. That meant the pot was already big, and so was the tension at the table. Then came the flop. 10-7 jack, all hearts. Maria had just flopped a set of tens. For most players, that's a dream spot, but the board was also scary because any player with 2 hearts would have already made a flush, and there were straight possibilities as well. Almost immediately, Farrell shoved all in for more than 1 million chips. This move put Maria in a terrible spot. If she was wrong and someone had a flush, her tournament life could be over. After a long think, she made the shocking choice to fold her set.
Wow.
Viewers online questioned her call before the flop and asked why she would give up such a strong hand on the flop. Some admired her caution, but the majority of people were stunned. Folding a set is rare, and in this case, it looked almost unthinkable. The main concern here was to even call before the flop if you still plan on folding a set. That's a really bad play. And even if it's worst case scenario and your opponent has a straight or a flush, you still have outs for a full house. But if you thought that was crazy, just wait till you see what Daniel Negreanu has to say about this fold. The stage for this particular game was set at the 2009 PokerStars Caribbean Adventure High Roller in the Bahamas. The air around the table was thick with tension as the game drew nearer. Millions were on the line. The blinds were climbing, and every chip meant survival. At this point in the tournament, only a handful of players remained. Big names like Bertrand Elke Grospillier and Scott Seaver were in the hunt, while Daniel Negreanu was at the commentary booth. Then came the hand. Will Moltzen sat in the big blind with Queen 7 of diamonds. Though it wasn't a monster hand, it was playable in the big blind. He called. The flop rolled out with 2 diamonds, giving him a real chance, a live flush draw. This is the flop you dream about when having a suited hand. You call with a suited hand, you connect, and now you're in business. Grospillier led out with a bet. The pressure was on Molson, who, despite not being short-stacked, still was out of position. Most players in that spot would lean forward, take a breath, and either call or even raise. A flush draw is one of the strongest semi-bluffs in the game. The pot was building, the odds were calling his name. And then, he folded. Just like that. Cards were in the muck. The room seemed to pause. Negreanu's commentary nearly cracked.
I'm shocked that he just folded the flush draw in that situation.
My.
I don't see why you would play a Queen 7 of diamonds if you're going to flop a flush draw to it and then just fold it for a pretty standard sized bet. Very, very strange play there from the Canadian.
That's plain and simply a mistake, right?
Has to be.
If you were the one on that table, would you do a thing like that? Because honestly, I think a lot of players would have done worse. Fans later flooded the comment section asking the obvious, because why even call pre-flop if you're going to fold when you have a monster draw? This wasn't cautious play. How could someone be giving up on one of the best spots he could hope for? To make matters worse, the board would have delivered him the flush if he had stayed in. That's the sting, seeing the hand you dreamed of slip through your fingers. And if you thought that was wild, just wait till you see one of the greatest poker players to ever live choose to muck the winning hand. The year was 2009, and the stage was set for the World Series of Poker main event in Las Vegas. As the biggest tournament of the year, it had thousands of players. a $10,000 buy-in, and a prize pool climbing past $60 million. Deep into the action, with the cameras rolling, one of poker's greatest players, Phil Ivey, made a mistake so strange it left everyone in disbelief. Across from him was Jordan Smith. The hand began with Ivey holding pocket eights, while Smith was dealt ace-9. Pre-flop, Ivey raised on the big blind, and Smith responded with a re-raise to $1 million in chips. Ivey made the call, and the hand was set up for a clash. The flop came 5 of spades, queen of hearts, and 10 of spades. Both men checked, with an air of caution and urgency all over them. On the turn, the queen of spades dropped. Once again, both players checked. Then came the river, the ace of spades. That card was huge because it gave Ivey a flush. Smith, on the other hand, now had a pair of aces. Good, but nowhere near as strong as a flush. Here's where things went sideways. After the check, Smith tabled his ace-9, confident he had the winning hand. But instead of showing his flush, Ivey mucked his cards, sliding them into the muck pile face down. Just like that, the pot was pushed the other way. Why is this embarrassing? Because Phil Ivey, known as one of the sharpest minds in poker, misread his own hand at the World Series of Poker. He had the winner, but he let it go. That's why many couldn't believe it. This was a mistake, clearly, but it still stands as one of the most embarrassing mistakes in recent poker history. You know what else is embarrassing? Not hitting subscribe before we move on to how Peter Eastgate got his soul read by Tom Dwan. This big embarrassing fold went down on High Stakes Poker Season 5, the show where the stakes seemed like adult math problems. $400, $800 blinds, $200 ante, and a minimum cash buy-in up in the 6 figures. The table had heavy hitters, such as Barry Greenstein, Doyle Brunson, Daniel Negreanu, and Tom Dwan, who by then had a rep for making impossibly loud plays. Peter Eastgate, fresh off winning the 2008 World Series of Poker main event, was at the table too. Pre-flop, the pot swelled because everyone wanted a piece. Greenstein opened with pocket aces. Dwan called with queen 10 of clubs, and Eastgate, in the small blind, called with 4 deuce offsuit. Yes, 4 deuce. It looked harmless, but when the dealer fanned the flop, deuce 10 deuce, Eastgate suddenly had trip deuces. Greenstein led out with a $10,000 bet. Dwan, playing fast and loose, raised to $37,300. Eastgate cold called, tipping off he had something. The pot was already huge. Turn brought a 7. Both Eastgate and Greenstein checked. Dwan, who had been writing a mix of bravado and timing reads, fired $104,200. The number landed like a cliff. Eastgate sat there, fingers near his chips, eyes flicking, and folded his trips. Greenstein folded too. Dwan raked in the pot. He would later say he'd bet any hand that would make both of them fold. He even said that he'd make a side bet that Peter had the best hand, which Eastgate later confirmed he'd folded. Why is this so embarrassing when you tell it plain? Trip deuces is a monster on that flop. Most players want to get money in, but this fold shows how poker mixes math with emotion. The pot was already 7 figures in chips. Dwan's line screamed strength, and Eastgate chose to protect his stack, not chase a scoreboard moment on TV. Some fans called it a brain fart. Others called it clear discipline. When Upswing and Card Player both ran deeper takes, they found that Dwan's line polarized his range so well that folding made sense for a player worried about being crushed by full houses or disguised straights. The embarrassing thing is to call with a 4-2 offsuit to begin with, hitting your trips, and then folding anyways. I mean, come on. You hit the best scenario and still folded. And if you thought folding trips was wild, just wait till you see how Hellmuth played the worst hand in poker. This high-stakes buy-in was much-watched television. The buy-ins were massive, $100,000 just to sit down, and the lineup was pure poker royalty. You had Daniel Negreanu cracking jokes, Antonio Esfandiari needling everyone, and of course, the combustible pairing of Phil Hellmuth and Mike the Mouth Mattisau. To make it even better, Phil Locke was there. We also made a video about him, by the way, so check it out. I'll put up a link in the description. The blind set at 400, 800 with an optional straddle, and the pots could swell into 6 figures in the blink of an eye. Then came one of the most bizarre hands I've ever seen. Hellmuth holding the worst hand in poker, 7-2 offsuit, against Mattisau's pocket kings. Pre-flop, Mattisau opened to $1,800. Hellmuth raised to $7,000. Pure bravado with garbage cards. Sitting with kings, Mattisau had every reason to re-raise and punish him. Instead, he just flatted, keeping the small pot and giving Hellmuth room to maneuver. The flop landed Queen Jack 6 Rainbow, a board where kings still looked like a fortress. The flop went check, check. The turn brought the 8 of diamonds, and Phil fired $17,000 with nothing but air. Mattisau just called. The river came a 6 of clubs. Phil fired $40,000, and here's where the whole hand unraveled. Mattisau stared and finally slid his kings into the muck. The table erupted, Hellmuth raked in the chips, and the commentators could hardly process it.
There you go, Phil.
Turns the kings over, throws them away, and here it comes.
Oh my! That was the only thing I thought. That was the only thing I thought. That was the only thing I thought. He either had deuce 7.
How can he fold kings that is so...
It's a new game today, boys. It's a new game.
Pocket kings folded to the weakest hand in poker? This is so embarrassing because Mattisau not only had a monster preflop, but he let Hellmuth dictate every street. By slow playing, he turned kings into a guessing game, then guessed wrong. To fold that strong hand against a player known for bluffing? That was brutal. Fans piled on afterwards, with one Reddit thread noting how this hand became shorthand for Mattisau's inconsistency and a key flashpoint in the long-running Hellmuth-Mattisau feud. Watching Mattisau's face as Hellmuth rakes in chips with 7 deuce is a lesson in poker heartbreak. But if you thought that was crazy, just wait till you find out Daniel Negreanu also can make embarrassing folds. Poker is famous for unbelievable moments. But what if the unbelievable isn't a huge win like you would normally expect? Right from the start of this game, the table was loaded with genius minds. We had Patrick Antonius with pocket 5s, Daniel Negreanu holding up pocket 9s, and Phil Ivey sitting on king 10. You could already smell trouble brewing. The flop came down, a 5, a 9, and a 10. Just like that, we had 3 players hitting the flop at the same time. Basically, this was a poker car crash waiting to happen. Antonius tossed out 5,000. Daniel just called, trying to look casual, and then Phil only called 2. At this point, it seemed like somebody was somehow stacking dynamite under the table. Then came the turn, a 10. And here's where things got insane. Phil's king 10 turned into trips. Antonius had a full house with 5s full, and Daniel was stuck right in the middle with 9s full. 3 monsters, all in one pot. Daniel put out 26,000. Phil thought about it forever, replaying every possible nightmare in his head, and in the end, he folded. He actually folded trips here. Most people would never even dream of doing that, but Phil Ivey was not most people. But the spotlight didn't stay on Phil. Antonius eventually shoved all in. And here's where the real shock came. Daniel sat there with a full house. Yes, a full house, and actually considered throwing it away. He hesitated at first, then looked uncomfortable, and finally, he folded too. That's right, Daniel Negreanu folded a full house, live, on camera, with the commentators nearly falling out of their chairs.
I'm wasting people's time.
And he's throwing it away.
Look at that.
Almost checked the river.
Patrick was convinced he had the best hand.
Almost checked the river there.
To most players, folding a hand like that is poker blasphemy. It's like tossing away a winning lottery ticket just because the cashier looks suspicious. Was it entertaining? For sure. Was it logical? Maybe. But that's the kind of fold that makes fans argue for years. Was Daniel being careful, or just too careful?